Well, good morning and many thanks for allowing me to be part of your Sunday morning this morning. I'd like to read a couple of verses in the book of Revelation, chapter 5 and verse 4. "And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders said to me, Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof." And we do look to God to bless his word this morning. I'm in a place, perhaps not too unlike that of Revelation 5, a place of many tears, a place of much weeping. This is Lockerbie, and it's the memorial garden for the catastrophic events that befell this town in 1988, just a little over 33 years ago. 270 people were killed in total in that disaster as the Pan Am flight flying above the town exploded. A bomb had been placed within it and part of the plane scattered over the town, killing others. Terrible catastrophe, one of the greatest catastrophes to befall Scotland in modern times, and one of the greatest air disasters as well of all times. It's a place that reminds us that the experience of life is at times bitter, and that there are many tears in life. The book of Revelation is a book that brings together the plans and purposes of God. And at the end of the book of Revelation, John assures us that in the place that is called heaven, in the eternal place, in the presence of God, there will be no more tears. At the very end of this book, we're assured that God will wipe away all tears. And yet it's something of a surprise that at the beginning of this book, that assures us that all tears will be taken from heaven, John introduces this book with tears, and it says there in Revelation 5:4, "And I wept much." Oftentimes in life, a positive implies a negative. For example, we often say that God can do anything. Anything is possible for God, or to quote the words of the Lord Jesus Christ, with God all things are possible. That's repeated 3 times, in fact, in the Gospels. And yet in that big, broad, positive, expansive statement, there is implied a negative, as the little chorus that sometimes the children would sing reminds us that with God, everything is possible. God can do anything, God can do anything but fail. There's an implied negative. If everything is possible for God, then that means he cannot fail at anything. And so too, if heaven is a place of weeping, at the beginning of this book of Revelation, John weeps. If heaven is a place where there is no weeping, at the beginning of this book, John weeps. And he's weeping for this reason, at the possibility that the plans and purposes of God might be frustrated. The possibility this book might not be opened, a book that holds the very key to all future events. If heaven doesn't come, and if he can't get into heaven, then that would be the cause of tremendous weeping, and it would be the deepest, darkest sorrow for the human soul if all of the suffering, tragedies, trials and problems of life had no meaning. That would be the greatest source of weeping. Even greater than the weeping that death and disaster brings, the thought that there is no meaning and purpose in any of it would bring an even deeper sorrow. And as you go around the little plaques of memorials, you'll find time and time again a little thought that brings some kind of comfort or some source of meaning in the experience of those that were lost. A little quote from the Bible that says, "I will never leave you," is on one of the memorial stones, perhaps a reference to their Christian faith, that irrespective of the tragedy, even death itself, the promise of the Lord Jesus Christ, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And there's a quotation there too from Psalm 23, a wonderful psalm that speaks about the presence of God even through the valley of the shadow of death. Perhaps the parents and children of those that died knew something of that experience. Well, Revelation reminds us that there is meaning and purpose in suffering. One of the great questions I think that anyone can ask about the world that we live in that's marked by such bitterness and sorrow is, why does God not immediately intervene? Why does God seem to hesitate? Why does he not immediately bring things to a conclusion? And the answer to that, of course, is very interesting and very, very important. As you look at Revelation 5, we see that God does ultimately bring this world to its final conclusion. And he does it in his own time. There is timing in what God does. It's John who desires that the book would be opened. And it seemed that no one could open it. And then verse 5 of Revelation 5, and one of the elders said to me, "Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the book." In his time, the Lord Jesus Christ, as the Lion and ultimately as the Lamb, has fulfilled the purposes of God. In his time, those promises and prophecies have been fulfilled, and into this world comes the Son of God, and to Calvary he goes, and the sufferings and the death of that great work of salvation bring men and women into a living relationship with God. In his time, Satan is judged and sin is dealt with. In his time, the plans and the purposes of a new creation, a new heaven and a new earth are being fulfilled. It is according to the divine plan and the divine timing. There's one great reason that God does not intervene arbitrarily in this world and simply at any point draw a line under it, and it is this: that in life, even in our deepest, darkest sufferings and experience, there is meaning and purpose. If it was possible that God could simply at any point in the history of this world draw a line and a conclusion, it would mean this: there is no plan, there is no purpose, there is no ultimate destiny. But because there is a plan, a purpose and an ultimate destiny, God allows this world to continue to that final destination. Even in heaven, John witnesses that book about to be opened. It's in God's time. It's by the one that he's appointed. It's by the Lamb and the Lion who went through the experience of life, who came into this world as a baby, who lived out the life of the miracle working Jesus Christ that you read about, and who went to Calvary fulfilling the purposes of God in deepest, darkest suffering and bitterness. And by that, brought the salvation of all that would believe in him. It is a great paradox of this book that the tears of John at the beginning of the book of Revelation indicate this: that there is meaning and purpose in tears, that the tragedies that run through not only my life, your life, and a place like this also have in divine purpose and divine plan meaning. Sometimes it's hard to see that meaning and purpose. Sometimes it's easier to see it. Easier to see it perhaps in the sufferings of the Son of God, the Lamb and the Lion. Easier to see it perhaps at Calvary, when we can see that he brings many sons to glory. Easier to see it perhaps in the changed lives that come by faith in Jesus Christ. Easier to see it as we see that Christ has built his church and brought many from bitterness, sin and broken lives, hopelessness, into the joy of his saving grace. There's a little poem that was written many years ago that kind of expresses some of those thoughts. I'm just going to read a couple of verses from it. It says this: "Not till the loom is silent and the shuttles cease to fly will God unroll the canvas and reveal the reason why the dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned." Meaning is found in the person of the Lord Jesus Christ. Salvation is found in the Lamb. Purpose and authority in the Lion. I do trust that you know him and that he brings meaning, purpose and joy to your life as he can. Remember too, our website, graceinchrist.org. There are the older videos on that website and also a real library of teaching and preaching as well. Do give it a visit. Thanks very much for being with me this morning.